This is the Velotric Packer 1, and it is a cargo hauling e-bike with a huge payload capacity of up to 440 pounds. So how well can it substitute your current vehicle? Let's take a ride and find out. Hey everyone, I'm John with Electric Bike Report. Just a quick reminder to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our content. We're always coming out with new e-bike reviews, and we've got more e-bike giveaways in the works. So if you hit that bell icon, you'll be able to stay up to date on everything we have going on. But let's talk about the Packer 1. E-bikes like this are great for family adventures, picking up a few groceries, or for carrying all the gear you need for work. We're not sure they'll ever totally replace a full-size automobile, but their goal is often to be able to substitute them for shorter local trips. The 440-pound payload capacity I mentioned earlier definitely helps out with that. The rider's weight is included there, but the optional front basket we have on our test bike has a 33-pound capacity, and the rear cargo rack can hold up to a whopping 176 pounds. According to weightandthings.com, that's about 400 vinyl records, so you can really go nuts at those yard sales. But with the length of the rack here, that can also very comfortably accommodate 2 kids. Space and weight capacity are not everything though. A bike like this really needs to be comfortable for the rider, and the Packer definitely is. It has a big cushioned custom Velotric saddle that felt great even after a couple hours on the bike. It has some nice swept back handlebars that felt really natural to hold on to, and the ergonomic grips just made that even better. You might notice that the bike's front wheel is larger than the rear one. That setup is what mountain bikers call a mullet design, but it has some really great benefits here with handling. The front wheel is 26 inches with a 2.4-inch wide tire, and the rear wheel is 20 inches with a wider 3-inch tire. I found it was way more maneuverable than I expected based on the bike's size, but it's also a bit more stable with that rear tire, and then the cargo rack's height keeps the center of gravity lower and feels a bit more balanced. The Packer includes a 750-watt rear hub motor with enough power to handle all the extra weight on the rack. That uses a cadence sensor to engage, and there's a 48-volt, 692-watt-hour battery that's integrated into the down tube to keep that motor moving for quite a while. The battery is removable and UL 2271 certified, and the Packer itself is UL 2849 certified. So there's an 8-speed Shimano Altus drivetrain here with a 46-tooth chainring and a 13 to 34-tooth cassette, as well as a KMC chain. There's a hydraulic brake system here that doesn't display a brand, but it's a 4-piston system with 180mm rotors on both wheels. Those tires we talked about are made by CST, and they're at least advertised as puncture resistant. And the bike also includes an air and oil suspension fork with 80mm of travel to help smooth out the ride. Up in the cockpit, there isn't really anything unusual. The bike's control panel and throttle lever are on the right bar, and the shifter is on the left along with a bell. That about covers it for all the main bike stuff, but we still have a lot to talk about with all the accessories here. There's a nice practical package of included accessories. You get the front and rear fenders, a headlight and a tail light, a chain guard to keep your pants clean, and then wheel guards to keep the kids safe, as well as a bamboo top board for the cargo rack. The Packer 1 is also compatible with the Apple Find My technology, so in the unfortunate event of theft, there's a good chance you'll know where to find your bike as long as it's near a device with Bluetooth connectivity. One more thing that's included is the storage compartment behind the seat post. We've seen similar things before, but the fact that this includes a TSA combination lock is definitely a nice added touch and an extra bit of security. On top of that, there are a huge number of optional accessories to make your life easier. There's the front basket and 2 different sizes of rear basket for hauling stuff. And then for kids, there are footboards, seat pads, and then depending on their age, 2 different items for them to hold on to. There's a balustrade that wraps around them as sort of a containment system, but there's also a handrail with 2 grips right up front toward the front end of the bike. Velotric has a couple of bundles with these various things that can be added to your cart along with the bike. We'll leave a link in the video description down below so you can check those out. But now that we've gone over all of the details, let's dive into the performance side of things and see how the Packer One did in our testing. The Packer One and its 4-piston hydraulic brake system did a solid job in our brake test. We pedaled the bike up to 20 miles per hour before hitting the brakes, and then we measured the distance it took to come to a complete stop. To be a bit more thorough and fair, we repeated this process 3 times and then used all of those data points to calculate an average. That result was 22 feet 6 inches, which is about 2 feet longer than average when compared to the other cargo e-bikes we've tested previously. That pool of bikes that we're using to compare to is relatively small just because there are fewer cargo bikes on the market. But regardless, the Packer's result is still very much within our normal range of results. To keep everything on an even playing field, we didn't test the bike with any additional weight on the rack during our official tests, but do keep in mind that the brakes here will naturally take longer to slow the bike down as the total weight of the bike goes up. We like to also judge brakes by their feel, and my experience with these was really good. I liked the 4-piston system here. I definitely felt like there was better bite over a 2-piston setup, and I think they did a nice job of keeping the bike under control even when I did test the bike out separately with some cargo. The Packer One ships as a Class 2 e-bike with both its throttle and its pedal assist system limited to 20 miles per hour. I did a speed test to see how fast the bike could go in all 5 of its pedal assist settings, so let's take a look at how things turned out. Okay, so we are here on the Velotric Packer One to do a speed test, and I'm pedaling here with no help from the motor, kind of around 11.5 miles per hour, pretty comfortably. Let's bump that up to PAS 1. So you can hear that there's really nothing happening. My speed is staying the same. The motor in PAS 1 actually just helps up to about 10 miles per hour. So let's bump that up to PAS 2. We're gonna see kind of a similar thing here. The motor brought me up a little bit faster to right about 12 miles per hour here, and that is where it is limited in that setting. So let's go up to PAS 3, and I'll shift up to 7th gear. Actually, we'll go all the way up to 8th. You can see that was a little bit of a kick getting up to PAS 3. And here we're gonna hover kind of right around 15 miles per hour. And I mean, you know, just pedaling very casually at this point. Do want to point out that we don't have any cargo in the back, so speeds and effort levels will change a little bit with added weight. But you know, right now cruising pretty comfortably. We'll go up to PAS 4 here, and another punch from the motor there, up to about 17 miles per hour, 16.9 to be precise. And then we'll go up to PAS 5, where we get another burst of speed, and we're gonna hit that Class 2 max speed of 20 miles per hour. So that does it for our speed test on the Packer One. Okay, so we are here on the Velotric Packer One to do a throttle acceleration test from 0 to 20 with no extra weight on the cargo rack. So here we go in 3, 2, 1, go. Picking up pretty quick here. Going by the bike display, and we are at 20. So I want to apologize for the rattle. That was actually the cover for the cargo basket bouncing around a bit, and I think it came through a bit louder on camera than it seems in real life. But I've got to say that the cadence sensor on the motor here made this test really easy because I didn't really have to put in any real effort aside from keeping the pedals moving, although I did try to keep my pedaling relatively active. But also, the pedal assist system here has preset speed limits, so there wasn't any guessing about where I was going to end up in each setting. I was pretty surprised by how easy it felt to pedal the bike without any power from the motor. Going uphill probably would have been a lot tougher, but on flat ground I was able to go 11.4 miles per hour. I learned that the speed limit for the lowest pedal assist setting, which is PAS1, was set at 10 miles per hour, so the motor didn't even turn on when I switched up to that setting since I was already going faster. I got a little bump in speed up to the 12 mile per hour mark when going up to PAS2, and then I measured 15 miles per hour in PAS3, 17 in PAS4, and 20 miles per hour in PAS5. The speed limits of the pedal assist system are the same with the throttle. So if you're in PAS3, you'll also top out at 15 miles per hour there. And I mentioned in the video that weight would have an impact on speed, but I tested the bike later with about 45 or 50 pounds of cargo on the rack, and I didn't notice any change in speed, although that may have been different with a heavier load. The acceleration felt a little bit punchy in PAS 3, 4, and 5, and I'd like to see that get tuned down a little bit just to make sure it's easy to maintain control. Any kind of weight on any kind of cargo bike changes the balance and the handling a lot, so we definitely prefer slower building speed. Otherwise, the overall distribution of speed and power here was really good. The jumps in power between settings were nice and even, so they felt right just based on what I expected. We measured really great results from our range test, and we were able to exceed Velotric's advertised range of up to 52 miles. But we also think there's potential for the Packer to do even better. A little bit of background first. Our contact at Velotric told us that their range test was done on flat roads with no cargo and a 154-pound rider using PAS1. Our test riders vary in weight a little bit, and we ride on bike paths with quite a few hills, so we usually expect to do a little worse than what we see a bike advertised as. We also do 2 tests to get a minimum and maximum range, usually using the highest and lowest pedal assist settings. In this case though, we didn't think PAS1 or even PAS2 had enough power to move extra weight uphill very easily, so we tested the bike in PAS3 and PAS5, and we also threw about 40 pounds in the rear basket for about half the test. So with all that in mind, we measured a range of between 36.9 miles all the way up to 58.4 miles. Again, with this category of e-bikes, we have a smaller pool of other models to compare our results to, but the Packer was just under the top of the list in both tests. If we hadn't used any weight, and if we stuck with a lower level of pedal assistance, it probably would have blown those other e-bikes out of the water. The 48-volt, 692 watt-hour battery is fairly middle of the road in terms of capacity, but we tested a couple of other Velotric bikes in the past, and we learned that their engineers tune their motors to get better efficiency. We definitely noticed a difference here, and we were really impressed by the Packer's results. As always, we did our hill test at Hellhole Trail, where the path has an average grade of 12%. I'll pass you off to Justin so you can see his experience when he tested both the throttle and the pedal assist system in PAS5.
Okay, so here we are in the Velotric doing the throttle only test. You know, it's a cargo bike, got a bit of weight to it, but so far it's been doing pretty good. Feels pretty solid through this hill, 13 miles per hour, 12. Yeah, so initial impressions are this has got a good amount of torque, good amount of power to it. You can hear the motor. I'd say it's about average. kind of right in that mid-level on the frequency range, not too high, not too low. I'll let you listen to it through this next section here. So carried through, got down just the low 11s on that section, so definitely will make it up. Yes, there's some motor noise to it, but nothing out of the ordinary. Like I said, I'd say this is just right in line average. I'm really anxious to see the results though. This is pretty good hill climbing. We're about 17, 18 miles an hour right now, so let's go to the results. Okay, so now we're back on the Velotric with a pedal only test. I have a feeling this is gonna get up here pretty quick. You know, I'm right around 15, 16. I'm not having to pedal hardly at all. I'm in 8th gear, so I don't think I'm gonna have to downshift at all. Yeah, the motor sounds like it did on the throttle only test. Not much change there. I'll let you listen to it through this next section. Yeah, so got down to the high 13 miles, still not having to push much at all on this. So very easily climbs. And I don't have cargo, and I am just climbing. Curious to see what the results are, but I have a feeling it'll be pretty good.
So as you can see, that 750 watt motor has plenty of power for going up steep hills. It peaks at a pretty impressive 1200 watts and has a total of 75 Newton meters of torque. With all that power, we measured 1 minute and 15 seconds on our throttle test with an average of 14.5 miles per hour. Pedaling is usually a bit faster since the motor isn't doing all the work, and Justin brought that time down to 1 minute and 9 seconds at 15.7 miles per hour. All in all, these results are pretty average in comparison to those other cargo bikes we've tested. The Packer was a little better than average with its throttle and a little worse than average with pedaling, but in both cases, it landed generally in the middle. In perspective, that's really good, as it shows that this bike can match its peers, and cargo bikes tend to be some of our best performers anyway. As a bit of a bonus, I took the Packer to another hill that has become sort of a secondary test location for us. It's not quite as intimidating as Hellhole, but our results are actually pretty similar most of the time, and I wanted to see how the Packer did with the little extra weight. I'll skip the hard data here. You can check out our written review with the link in the video description if you want to see speeds and times, but the bike did just fine with an extra 45 or 50 pounds on the rack. The throttle results there were about 20% slower than when I rode up without weight, but there was only about a 10% difference with pedaling. So based on that secondary test, we learned that if you've got a really heavy load and the throttle seems to be struggling a little bit, you'll probably do just fine if you add in a little bit of pedaling. I want to take you out for one more ride on the Packer One so you can get a better sense of what it feels like. Let's go for another spin and talk about its ride quality. Okay, so we are here on the Velotric Packer One to show you what it's like to ride. Now this is, of course, a cargo e-bike that features a pretty upright riding position, although you know, you can change that a little bit if you want. There's quite a bit of adjustment here just because of the fact that there's only a single frame size, but you know, the bike can fit riders between 5'3" up to 6'6". So you have, you know, a few inches in the seat post, and then of course with the adjustable stem, you can change your handlebar height or your reach, or you know, adjust the angle of the handlebars as well. Interesting setup with the tires here, kind of a mullet design. There is a 26-inch tire up front, 26 by 2.4 if I remember right, and then the rear is a 20-inch by 3-inch tire. So with the larger front tire, you know, you get good control, a little more comfort from that. With the back, you can keep your center of gravity a little bit lower, make better handling overall, and then also a little extra stability with the width of that. You also have a front suspension fork with 80 millimeters of travel to help smooth out the ride there. And then let's talk a little bit about that motor. That is a proprietary motor from Velotric. It is the Velo Power H75, which is a 750 watt rear hub motor that uses a cadence sensor. So I'm actually going to show you how quickly that responds here. I'm going to bump up to PAS5 and just sort of coast. So I'm going to move my feet, and then you can hear how quickly the motor engages. So I'm going to do that now. All right, so pretty fast engagement there. A little bit of a delay, but honestly not too bad, and makes for a pretty easy ride when you're hauling kids or cargo. So all right, let's bounce back to the studio and talk a little bit more. So I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I mean, again, I thought the Packer was super comfortable, and it had surprisingly good handling with that mullet design. I think everything just worked really well here. If I'm getting a little nitpicky, then I'd say that I'd prefer to see a color display instead of the black and white one that comes with the bike, but that's not a huge deal. Velotric's e-bikes tend to have some nice splashes of color like the sky blue that we have here, and I just think that a color display would fit that sort of fun and contemporary feel a little bit better. But otherwise, I have nothing but good stuff to say. I liked the adjustable stem and the fact that I could customize the fit here. I liked the quick motor engagement and the casual feel of the ride. And I guess I couldn't help but feel like there was a bit more substance to this bike. It felt like a bit more of a vehicle and a bit less of a bike because of its size. And I think that's really appropriate for a big cargo hauler like this. In my experience, every cargo bike does the main thing of hauling stuff around pretty similarly, but the small things end up being done a bit differently from bike to bike. I really liked the balance that the Packer struck between feel and function. I found it to be fun, it was easy to use, and it was also really comfortable to ride. I don't personally have kids, but I've spent enough time around my friends' families to know that you usually have your hands full, so it's a lot easier when the other things in life just go smoothly. If you're looking for a way to spend more quality time with the family, I think that's exactly the experience you'll have with the Packer One. Those optional accessory bundles will help you get things set up for the kids, and then you're pretty much good to go. And if you're planning to use the Packer for groceries or other gear, I think you'll be really pleased there as well. This large-sized cargo basket for the rear is great, but of course you have some options there, and again, the bike definitely has the power and the capacity to move whatever you need to move. The Packer One did a really solid job in all of our testing, and with everything it brings to the table, I definitely think it succeeded at being the e-bike version of a minivan. If you're looking for a good cargo bike, the Packer One is definitely a great choice. I mentioned it previously, but again, we'll leave a link to the Velotric website in the video description down below in case you want to take a closer look. And please do use that affiliate link if you make a purchase. It won't cost you anything extra, but it lets us know that you value all of the work we put into our reviews. And if you like reading or you want to dive into a bit more detail, check out that link to our written review as well. That's all. Thanks for coming along with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Velotric Packer One.